Podcasting is more than just talking. It's listening. BSing with Bob Schmidt.
It's a BS with Bob Schmidt podcast talking entrepreneurship, business, and marketing. My guest this week, accidental career coach, speaker, and author of Reinvent Your Career, the Baby Boomer's Guide to Finding Meaningful Work at Any Age. And this kind of fits me, I guess, pretty much to a T. I'm a little bit younger than a baby boomer, but I lost my job at the end of May, and I just turned 50, so I need to kind of reinvent myself and figure out how it is that I can find, that next big gig for myself.
I think the key thing right now is to figure out what it is that you want to do. One of the things that's important to recognize is we go through 3 different careers in our life, not just jobs, but careers. And as we age, our interests differ and our skill sets differ. So really to find out what it is that you want, and when you really know what it is and have a clear vision, you have a much better chance of it coming true, of it happening. If you don't really know exactly what it is that you want, you probably won't find it, even though God opens doors in funny ways and leads you to things that down adventures and down paths you never knew. It really helps if you know where you want to go, because then you have a better chance of finding that roadway, that pathway.
Now, Diane, when you're saying 3 different careers, you're talking, from my first job as a dishwasher when I was a kid, then I was a radio guy for many years, and now I'm doing podcasting. Is that the 3 kind of career choices that you're talking about, or is there still more in the cards for me?
Well, I would forget about the dishwashing. I don't think that was a long-term career aspiration.
No.
But I think for any of us, my first job was as a waitress, so I know we've all done those jobs, and the value of those jobs is it teaches us what we don't want to do and why it's so important to get the education to move on to the next step. But you were a radio guy, and then something happened, and now you're really focusing on podcasting, and that's a whole new technological innovation over radio, and it's being your own boss. And maybe from there it's writing a book. Maybe it's going from radio to TV. Maybe it's becoming a public speaker. Who knows where your skills and expertise and interests are going to take you? But the good thing is you have the choice of following those leads and trying on new things.
Now, Diane, is it hard to try to rebrand yourself when it comes to, I was doing this, I was kind of stuck in the rut doing the same thing day in and day out, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, I'm forced to make that change?
I think that's an important thing. And one of the things is if you brand yourself, that really helps as opposed to just, I have a job with this company. So one of the things that my first book is Brand You to Land Your Dream Job, because I'm a marketing branding person, and the most important thing is that you have got to become the attractive personality or character that you are. And that doesn't mean physical attractiveness. It means personality. It means enthusiasm. It means your message. And so I think you are building yourself with your name and with your brand. And now as you transition to podcasting, you've got a great handle, you've got a name, you've got a branding that makes sense, and you can take that personal branding and extend it into other areas. Maybe you want to become a public speaker and share your message, or maybe you want to write a book. Writing a book adds 30% to your credibility immediately.
Really?
To your personal brand, yeah.
I got to read a book first.
Write a book. What?
I have to read a book first.
Oh. You know what? You can actually transcribe your podcast, and there's ways to turn those into books.
I know. I'm just joking around with you, Diane. But so why does the writing of the book actually add value to a person?
Think of a book I think of my books as 195-page business cards. They establish me as an expert or you as an expert. But they're more than just a door opener. They become a business, because then you can use the knowledge in your book to teach people. You can set up courses. You can do webinar series. You can do podcasts. There's ways that you can monetize your expertise and your skills and your know-how. Once you have a brand and you have followers, that there's lots of different ways to monetize, that's a hot new word, monetize your skills, and having a brand is one of the steps in that platform.
Well, you hit the key on the head, or the nail on the head with the word monetize, because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs and small business people have ideas, have those, those thoughts that they think are going to get them some money. They do those things and they're not making any money. They got to figure out how to monetize those different things. How do you go from idea to monetization of an idea?
It's not easy, and I've been on that journey for several years. I have spent tens of thousands of dollars to get where I am, to understand where to go next. And it started with writing the book, but writing the book isn't the end result. It's a step. Mm-hmm. And now I'm working at doing things like public speaking, where you can get $2,500 to do a keynote or a speech at an event. They include setting up an online course, and I'm getting ready to start my first online course, which is taking all my job search skills step by step and putting them into a multimedia format that you can progress through step by step. It's more interactive than reading a book because you listen to videos, you read the lessons, and you complete the tasks or the worksheets or the assignments. So you create an online course. You create a series of webinars that help you market that course, or that you simply sell your expertise in that course. And you do what you're doing. The podcasts are the hot new the media platform for today's marketer. So you're right on that learning edge, and that's where media is going to, media on demand, content on demand. So you're already segueing into that next part of your career.
I know that your book is The Baby Boomer's Guide. So as a baby boomer, I'm assuming you're a baby boomer yourself, is it hard to learn those new technologies and to take that, the technology that's available for us now compared to the stuff that we grew up with?
Yes, and I think the biggest deficit or the biggest challenge that baby boomers have is embracing technology and jumping in and learning it. We're afraid of it. We all grew up, or at least I did, I'm older than you are, Bob, but we grew up during the time of a personal computer cost $3,000, and you started with a black screen with a little arrow and C prompt and DOS, and you had to memorize all this stuff. It was terrible. There was no software, so we grew up feeling that computers were like impossible to learn. And it's changed today. They're plug and play. They're easy. They become tools instead of you having to work at them. They work for you. But many in our generation don't embrace that. So that's the key thing we have got to do as a generation to avoid being the unemployable generation. We have got to embrace technology. And you have to address it every single day. I learn something every single day. I spent probably 2 hours a day on podcasts, on webinars, on learning new stuff.
Is it hard to come up with what to look for or where to find those new technologies and the new stuff every day?
No, it's easier when you start. When I started writing this book, I didn't know where to go. And I started researching. It's like, oh, it's all over every place. You start with YouTube. My God, everything you want to learn is on YouTube. Just find a channel that has the technology. If you have a radio, which everybody does, listen to Kim Commando. She spends a couple hours every Saturday talking about technology. Subscribe to a magazine. There's all sorts of magazines, Wired or Popular Mechanics or Popular Science. Lots of different publications teach technology. Belong to a professional association. If you have whether you're an accountant, you're a CPA, you're a marketer like I am, you're a nurse, a doctor, whatever, belong to a professional association, because those associations have programming chairs who are charged with bringing new speakers and content and technology to the members. And a lot of times the presentations will deal with cutting-edge technology, so you can learn right while you're networking with your peers. Community colleges have programs. Your high school, adult activities programs, many of them have technology courses. And they're all over everywhere. You just have to be open and look for them.
Technical colleges, community colleges, things like that as well, if you want to take some adult ed classes.
Yeah, and you know what I found out? A lot of people don't know this. Many community colleges will let you take classes for free if you're over a certain age, which could be 55 or 60. I did not know that. They don't promote that, but if you really probe a whole series of community colleges, if on the first day of class the class is not full, they will let you walk in and register for that class for credit at no tuition cost.
Huh.
I didn't know that.
It's worth the price of admission just for that tip right there, Diane. So it says here that you're the accidental career coach. How do you mean accidental? How does that happen?
I'm not from human resources. I didn't study human resources. I'm not from a human resource background. I'm a marketer. I'm a brand marketer. I started out as a product manager, junior product manager in the marketing department of big corporations like R.J. Reynolds Tobacco, Carnation, Nestle, CBS Television, all these different companies, Frito-Lay. So I worked in brand marketing for 30-plus years. Did a lot of entrepreneurial startups, and then about 3 years ago, as I'm moving away from the 80-hour-a-week job, I'm moving into a new 80-hour-a-week job. I just
or more.
This was 80 hours a week. And it's like, oh my God, how did I thought I was slowing down. So I started teaching at 2 universities.
Right.
And I became an adjunct professor, and that's another thing. Anybody who's got a master's degree can get a job as an adjunct professor at just about any university. And if you have a bachelor's degree and a tech field, HVAC, air conditioning, graphic design, things like that, you don't even need a master's. You can often get a job teaching at a university just with an undergraduate degree. So anyway, I started teaching, and I taught graduating seniors in the marketing department in the business school, marketing, their capstone marketing class. And I discovered that these bright, talented kids who just spent $100,000 in 4 years didn't have a clue on how to get a job. So when I discovered that, I went home and I spent a whole week preparing a detailed presentation that I gave in the next class on what you need to do to get a job. And then it kind of grew from there because people said, "Oh, I heard about your presentation. Can you send me the slides?" Like, well, the slides aren't enough. So then I started giving workshops and webinars, and all of a sudden it grew up and became a book. So I am coaching people from the viewpoint of a marketer, and my focus is on marketing yourself. You are a brand. Think of yourself just like a bottle of fine wine. You're a vintage wine, especially as you get older. We're really good vintages. But
or really good winers.
That too. But if you have your label is old and dusty and yellow, and you're kind of on the back shelf with other things in front of you, and the name tags in the front have gotten torn off, and there's dust on you, you aren't going to be valued. So we need to brush off our brand, if you wish. Make ourselves more attractive, focus on positioning yourself appropriately, focus on what your messaging is, and branding yourself, because you're the only you, and people are going to come to you and look for you because of how you have established your brand. Your brand is your personal and professional reputation, and you reflect that in the way you work, the way you walk, the way you talk, how you dress, your ideas, how you post on social media, how you communicate, how you position yourself. That's all branding, but we need to do that to showcase ourselves as the professionals who should be in demand that we are.
I look at, my brand, BS with Bob Schmidt. So the BS stands for a couple of different things, but it stands for Bob Schmidt, and just kind of, us having conversation. But, I also try to say be seen, be heard, be you as part of my branding message, so that way I'm trying to help people have their stuff be seen, have their stuff be heard, and also for them to be the best them that they can be.
Perfect. I think it's great branding. It fits in, it's memorable, it's unique, it's distinctive, and you have a message in how you've just explained your tagline, if you wish. You have a name or a moniker, which is BS with Bob Schmidt, and then you have a tagline that communicates what the value that you bring. I think it's great branding. And it doesn't happen easily. I mean, you don't just come up with a great idea and make it your brand. You kind of work into it. I came up with the Accidental Career Coaches. I was pitching a bunch of media at a media summit, and I'm talking to people over and over again, and then you try and figure out how you explain what you are in 5 words instead of in 5 minutes. And so it just kind of gels after a while as you keep talking about yourself, and then you come up with something that makes sense. So
it's kind of your elevator speech that made you point yourself into that direction.
Absolutely. And everybody needs an elevator pitch.
How do you come up with that?
An elevator pitch is 4 easy things. And to put it in context, think of yourself, you want to work for this best advertising agency in the world, and their legendary CEO who is, this icon, and you have an interview as a junior entry-level person. You walk into the elevator, you're going to the 56th floor, and you turn around, and next to you is this icon that you've always wanted to meet. What are you going to do in the 30 seconds it takes to for the elevator to go up? You're going to stand there. Are you going to stammer? Are you going to ask for an autograph? Or are you going to make a memorable impression? And that memorable impression has 4 components. The first is to introduce yourself effectively and persuasively, memorably if possible. And that is sticking your hand out and say, "Hello, sir, I'm Diane Huth. I'm the Accidental Career Coach. And it's a pleasure to meet you. I've always wanted to meet you." So you introduce yourself memorably. And then you say what you do and how you can do it for them. So in my case, I say, I'm a brand marketer. I am the accidental career coach, and I help people of all ages and all stages define their careers and find and land their dream job.
Yep.
And what I can do for you or for other people. And then you add proof of value. And so you don't just talk, I can do this. You prove that you have done it in the past and you can do it. So then you say, I have coached 2,000 college graduates through an extensive training program, and 80% of them have gotten jobs within 30 days of that training. That's proof of value. Your proof of value can be whatever you want. I'm CMO in my spare time for a maternity video company, and my proof of value there is we have produced 130,000 personalized videos in the last 7 years.
Wow.
Okay, that's huge.
That is huge.
So I proof it. And then you ask for what you want. You ask for a next step. And that can be, I'd love to have 30 minutes of your time to tell you about myself, learn from you, because I want to come and work for you. Or I'd like to do an interview for a blog post that I'm writing. Or I would love to be introduced to your HR department because I'd like to work for them. Or could I just have a cup of coffee because I'd like to learn more about your organization? But you ask for something. You don't just let them say, hi, nice to meet you, get off the elevator. You ask for a next step.
Now, do you have a business, like a personalized business card that doesn't have a company name on it? So that way you can say, hi, I'm Bob Schmidt. I'm a podcaster. I've talked to many authors and many actors and rock stars and and I'd like to help you or talk to you about how you became a rock star and hand them a card that has your name on it, or do you just... Everybody
needs to have a personal business card that represents your brand. Now, if you have your own business, that becomes a brand that you market. But if you're an employee for a company, then you should still have a personal business card with your personal email address, never your school email address, your personal email address and phone number. So if you change jobs, and most people will change jobs every 3 to 5 years, people can still reach out to you. And because you are not just the company you work for, you are your own personal brand, so you have to establish that.
Diane Huth is joining us on the BS with Bob Schmidt podcast. The brand you, the Reinvent Your Career, how do you reinvent yourself if you've been doing the same thing day after day for many, many years, Diane?
You start to figure out, what do I want to do? Am I bored doing what I'm doing? Is there a next step? Has technology changed things? In your case, technology did. You were in radio. Radio evolved to podcasts. So you have evolved without probably even noticing it because the technology has evolved. Also, your interests evolved. You aren't the same person you were 20 years ago. Your interests aren't the same. You have mastered so much stuff that things that you did 20 or 30 years ago aren't challenging or interesting anymore. And so you follow your interests and your passions, and you figure out, what do I love to do? What do I hate to do? What am I best at? What am I worst at? And you kind of evaluate those 4 things, and then you use that to say, where do I want to go from here? And what you love to do is where you want to be in life. That's your goal. That's your aspiration. What you do best is how you can make money today as you transition to that. What you hate to do is what you shouldn't ever do. Don't ever get boxed into doing something that you hate.
Right.
And we often do for money. And then you find out things I'm not good at. You have to say, is that deficiency? Is what I'm good at, is it going to stop me from meeting my goals? Or is it just something that's inconvenient and I can ignore it? For example, in marketing, you better be a good public speaker. And you must be able to write well. So if those are deficiencies and you want to work in marketing, you better fix those. Now, if you're a CPA and all you do is accounts receivable auditing, those things probably aren't as important. And you need to focus on other things. So they're not career builders or career enders. So you can say, okay, yes, I have a deficiency. I'll work on it when it's convenient, or I'll just focus on the things that add more value to me instead of cleaning up this, oh, by the way, you're not very good at this. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. But I mean, the whole adding value piece, I think that's something that we all kind of need to work on anyway, isn't it? Because with a changing and evolving world, that there's always that next piece that if I'm not getting any better at this, Diane, then Sam, that's right down the street, he's going to be doing it and working twice as hard in order to try to be that next person.
Right, and I think all of us, so often we think of, I've got a college degree, I've got a master's degree, I've got whatever. I'm done learning. I've got all the credentials I want. Technology is changing. Every 2 years, you need to learn new stuff to be abreast. So even if you're working for a company, you need to actively be learning. And one of the biggest trends today in employment is getting badges or certifications. So just because you got a college degree in XYZ 20 years ago doesn't mean you're current. And so companies and individuals are looking at individual certifications. You can go and do a program in social media certification or in project management certification or in some kind of a nursing specialty, whatever it is. Those certifications that are third-party credentialing say, yes, this person has met our criteria. Those are really important in staying relevant. Often you get badges that appear on like LinkedIn pages and social media pages, and that adds a lot of credibility. But when you are looking to keep your job or to find a new job, being able to show that you're current with new skills that you're bringing to the table is really critical. So we have to embrace lifelong learning. You can't just say, yes, I got my degree 20 years ago. It doesn't matter as much as what I'm doing today and what I'm learning today.
Okay, I don't mean this to sound like a sarcastic question, so please don't take it that way, but isn't that kind of the equivalent of the ribbon generation and the kids getting a ribbon for showing up to a soccer game?
No, this is you achieve things.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that we could clarify that because
no, you go through a class, you go through training,
okay.
You do testing to demonstrate your expertise. Mm-hmm. And your knowledge, and so you become certified in a field by current accomplishments.
Okay, well that makes sense. Now, as I'm paging through your book, talking about accomplishments, because it's a good time to ask this question. It says build a powerful resume. You have that in your book. How do you take some of these things like these badges of honor that you've received from X, Y, and Z corporations and put those into your resume without overcrowding your resume full of stuff that may be fluff?
One of the things that I've been doing, I see so many resumes now, and I look at them and my eyes cross because it's just words,
right.
And jargon, and I read it and my eyes cross. So I'm working on a new format that has been very effective, where I start with a career objective. So you have to say what you want to do. And if you don't know what you want to do, nobody else is going to figure out, so no one's going to hire you. So the career objective that I start with is a sentence that says, I want to use my 30 years experience with this and my certifications, my experience with these things to help your company do this. And you reflect the job description word by word. You mirror the wording so that you can engage with them and promise you're going to tell them, I can do what you want done. So it's achievement oriented. I'm going to use all my background experience to help you meet your goals, which you've just told me through your job posting are this, and this.
So you're looking at what they said and kind of spitting that same stuff back into them?
Absolutely, because number one, that's what they want to hear. And number two, if you want your resume to go through the search engines, I call them the resume reading robots. It's the ATS tracking system. If you want your resume to be spit out as a match, you have to reflect the exact same wording that they just told you was important to them, right?
Oh,
so it's
okay.
word matching.
Yeah, so it's kind of like listening, and it's kind of like the old mirroring when it comes to sales.
Absolutely. You tell them what they want to hear. Right?
That makes perfect sense. It seems super easy, though.
Well, it's an attitude, and it's taken me 40 years to learn this, so if you don't know, that's okay. I understand it took me 40 years to get here. I'm going to just kind of help you shortcut that learning.
Right.
Then the second part is I've started doing a 2-column bulleted summary of credentials. Now, remember, a recruiter is going to spend 7 seconds looking at your resume before he goes on to the next one. So you have got to grab him by the throat in 7 seconds. So what I do is I take those key high points and those certifications and those proof of expertise, and I put them in that 2-column bulleted item that might have 10 or 12 or 16 items in it, but that showcase I've got a degree in this, I've got a certification in this, I've got expertise in that, I do this, I use these computer languages, whatever it is, you kind of highlight in a bulleted phrase format your key credentials, because maybe they're never going to get past that in 7 seconds. So that's where you can add those badges in explaining your value.
Are we still doing just like a 1-page resume, or is it multiple pages, or are they even on pages anymore?
Yeah, they are on pages. The goal is to have a one-page summary. Very few people with any experience can get past that. It is tough, but I'll tell you how to do it. 2 pages maximum, with clean margins, easy to read, bolds and underlines and different fonts, so that it's not like just a massive jumble of words. So you walk the person step by step, so they read this and then they scan to the next point. Remember, you got 7 seconds to catch them. Mm-hmm. The biggest problem, besides not knowing what you want to do and being able to explain it, is that people on their resume, when they talk about what they've done in the past, they're so busy talking about the tasks that they do that they ignore the accomplishments. I don't care as much about what your tasks were, what you did every day. I want to know what you accomplished. So you take I was responsible for this, and I was responsible for that, and I was responsible for the other, and you say, I achieved. And then you have 2 or 3 bullet points that have either a number, a percentage mark, percentage sign, or a dollar in it. I drove 15% growth. I supervised 14 people. I launched 47 social media campaigns. I, drove, 15% net earnings to the bottom line. Whatever it is, you have accomplishments. That's what somebody wants to know. Did you achieve anything during the 3 years you worked there? Not what your tasks were. Those things don't matter. I see that all the time. If I know what position you're looking for and I have your job title, I know what those responsibilities should be. I want to know what you have achieved, what you have accomplished. And what I like to see that is in 2 to 3 bullets. So if you say a job listing, I was vice president of marketing for XYZ company for this period of time. Maybe you, in one sentence, you describe the company. This is a leading consumer ad, B2C ad agency with 47 clients that generates $42 million of revenue, and I was responsible for, so-and-so. And then you have 3 bullets that talk about what you achieved, and those bullets should have a focus on something quantifiable, a dollar sign, a percentage sign, or a number. So I managed 4 accounts generating $22 million of revenue. I grew sales 15% in the first 4 months in this position. I launched 4 ad campaigns with, high rating and an ad budget of $27 million, whatever it is. But you want something there that quantifies achievement with a dollar, a percentage, or a number. And then if I look at those, then I know what you did to get there.
Okay. So what are some of the first steps that we can take to reinvent our career? Let's just say, what are the top 3 things that we should look at reinventing our career?
Well, the first thing is figure out what you want to do at this phase of your life, because it may be different. I think the key thing that we've already talked about is embracing technology and learning technology, because just about anything you do requires technology. You had to learn radio technology, and then you had to learn podcasting technology and social media technology. So embrace all aspects of technology. The next thing is to embrace lifelong learning. I think it's important, if you're in any way in any social environment, is to look and act as young as you can without looking silly. And that means looking at a makeover of yourself. If you are my age, I don't want to look my age. I want to look more relevant to the people I'm going to be working with. And so you have to take things like coloring your hair, getting a makeup update, revamping your wardrobe with age-specific professional clothing, taking care of dental problems. Women, if you have the same makeup look you did 20 years ago, you're out of style. Your haircut is out of style. If you have gray hair or white hair, color it, because that is a sign of old age. And if you're going to be working with younger people, and most of us in our careers are going to work with younger people, we might well be the oldest person in the department, so you want to fit in. It's not about vanity, it's about relevance. We want to look as good as we can, but we want to look as good as we can so that people don't look at us as being old and irrelevant. Okay? Cleaning up dental problems. If you're missing teeth, if your teeth are yellowed, you need to have them bleached and fixed. And so you want to look good, and you want to act relevant. So one thing, an easy tip that everybody can do is look at how you walk. Young people walk briskly. Old people shuffle. So you need to take note of the way you walk and walk briskly. Don't look down at your feet. You need to walk briskly. You need to jog. You need to portray high energy. You need to communicate that you're technologically savvy. That means things like you should have a smartphone, not a flip phone. It means that you should do everything on your phone. I have a friend who comes to my class and she says, you go to the yellow pages, and I just cringe because my students don't even know what the yellow pages are. You Google something, right? You have to use the jargon that young people use. And nobody goes to a bank anymore. You do online banking, right? So you have to say, what are the technological things that everybody does? You can use technology props like your iPhone, like an iPad. You should have an Apple Watch or a Fitbit, right? If you want a hobby, you don't want to necessarily talk about bowling. Maybe you get a drone and you go out and learn how to fly a drone. Those are cool technology things. And they're little things that you can do to adapt to a younger workplace. And then you have to learn to communicate in a younger, contemporary manner. And one of the hardest things for me was to not over-communicate. I come from an environment where, you had to have perfect English, grammar, and spelling, and I used to love to diagram sentences. I thought that was fun. Nobody diagrams sentences today. They don't know parts of speech. So you need to learn a simpler, more concise, more relevant communication style. When I used to write a memo, I would want to make sure that I explain absolutely everything in that memo because I don't know who's going to read it when. Today, people don't read it. Their eyes glaze over. So in communication, you want to be very brief. You want to summarize things. You want to have bullets instead of paragraphs. And then you want more information, contact me. Today, younger people prefer text messaging instead of email. Email is now old-fashioned. So it's easier to communicate by text messaging and then even say, hey, I just sent you an important email. Check your email.
How do we find your book, Diane?
It's available on Amazon. So if you put my name, Diane Huth, or you put the book title, Reinvent Your Career, it will pop up. It has a bright red cover. It's easy to see. And also, if you go to HireMeNowPlease.com, HireMeNowPlease.com, I have a downloadable career checklist. This download is a 15 or 16-page checklist that kind of walks you through each of the areas of your job search. So you can say, yep, I've got that done. Whoops, no, I haven't really done that. I really need to work on that. It's a checklist that will help you see where you are on your job search journey to help you make sure that you meet your career goals.
The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast is brought to you by Orange Computer. Find them online at orangecomputerlax.com. And by Tri-State Sound and Light. Find them online at tristatesound.com. Tell your story with microcasts by podcastforhire.com. The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast is a Podcast for Hire production.